right, good morning, PrairieFire. Hello, everybody. I'm excited this morning to have a couple guests with us. As you can see on my screen here, I have got Yosh and Yael Sivi-Beier, and they have been longtime friends and partners of us in PrairieFire, and we're excited to have them here today because they've got an exciting project they've been working on that I wanted you to hear about. So we'll spend a little time learning more about them, about their company, and about this project they've been working on. But please stay with me till the end, because we've got an exciting offer for all of our PrairieFire clients and friends as part of what they're doing. So Yosh and Yael, welcome. How are you this morning?
Doing very well. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Matt.
You bet, we're glad to have you. So you two co-founded Collaborative Coaching. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about both yourselves and your company?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's actually interesting that you introduced us with our full names, including Yael's hyphenated name, because often in professional context, Yael's just introduced as Yael Sivi, but yes, indeed, we're a husband and wife. I'm from Germany, which you know, and your viewers and listeners may hear my accent. And we fell in love in 2003 and also figured out that we do have a very fiercely shared professional interest and founded Collaborative Coaching in 2010. And what led us there was really, we did human resource consulting, and we basically both had a very strong interest in personal growth and in basically human development. And B, what we realized is that we focus on leadership development in teams, that human dynamics is really what makes great leaders, and not just okay or bad leaders. And also human dynamics really drives team dynamics. And so we started to focus on that work really with supporting human dynamics in the workplace and personal growth and leaders to carve out that space. And that is what founded Collaborative Coaching.
All right. Good.
So that was well summarized.
Okay.
So along the way here, you just decided to write a book. So tell us a little bit about that.
Thanks for asking. It's so funny because I am a big journaler, and I was just looking over some journals from the past 10 years. And we started this book idea many years ago. For those of you who have ever had a book idea, I think I can really empathize and understand now. It just takes a while for a book to sort of be born. So how did we get here? One of the things, we're both, I would say if I have any addiction, it's to buying books. I love books. I love ideas. And I love sharing ideas and learning from others and teaching. And so over time in doing coaching with organizations and with leaders, we started noticing some patterns. And we started sort of conceptualizing these patterns and thinking about them and realizing maybe there's something here to be shared. In essence, the patterns are the following. Many of us face struggles at work, professional struggles, and they look a certain way. They look a way like, I really can't stand my boss, or I feel like no one likes me, or I don't know how to manage my friends. These struggles that on the surface sound like professional struggles and certainly show up that way, and our coaching clients sort of come with those dilemmas to us. But because both of us are trained as psychotherapists, one of the big things we realized over the years is these struggles are actually psychological and emotional at their origin. So we wanted to write a book to share sort of this big idea with people that what you think is a professional dilemma is often, if not always, a psychological or an emotional dilemma. And our book is really a way to sort of intimately look at 12 people and the coaching processes they undertook with our support to grow as people and as professionals. And as a psychotherapist, one of my role models is a famous psychoanalyst named Irving Yalom. And he has really sort of chartered the field of writing about his psychotherapy kind of behind the scenes. And most times we don't really know what goes on in psychotherapy or coaching. It's sort of under this cloak of confidentiality and secrecy. And so our book is also an effort to sort of open the door with permission from our clients, who we've all talked to about their stories, and make sure they're anonymized and no one is over-identified, but to say, here's what growth actually looks like. Here's what a coaching process actually looks like. And these people grew professionally as well as human beings. And that was just an exciting concept for us to share through writing this book.
If we have time, I would love to add something.
Your workplace angst might have something to be rooted in psychological.
Always, I would say.
Almost, always. And I think that is when we look back at, like also the 10 plus years we've been doing this now, is what we found is that over time, people come for a specific reason. It's often workplace related. It's like, I want to delegate better, or like just be better at giving feedback. But when they stay, and they often stay and work longer with us, they stay for different reasons, because they realize that what as Yael said, what looks like a professional challenge, delegation to my team, is really often much more internal. Like, I have control issues, or I have very exacting standards that I'm compulsive about, and I can't really be flexible with that. And coaching, in a way, when it's not just window dressing, where it tries to kind of do a little tweak here or there, but really invites people to look at themselves and transform personally, that is what drives the professional evolution. And we found that is work that really resonated with our clients, and at some point wanted to write about it.
Yeah, that's neat. So for a lot of us, I could see, like in our work, where when I'm really angsty, the markets are crashing, my clients are nervous, and I'm staring at the ceiling at home. Maybe if, I try to compartmentalize that as a work thing, but psychologically I'm taking on things maybe that isn't healthy. Is that?
That's
I don't expect you to shrink. I don't expect you to shrink me here, but I'm just.
We'll have to schedule a session with you after this, Matt. But
I didn't know I got that. Woo!
I think that insight is exactly right. That if we're having a strong feeling about anything, there's almost always history to it. There's a saying in psychotherapy, it says, if it's hysterical, it's historical. And look, there's something very humanly historical about the fear of loss, the fear of financial security. So I would suggest that isn't just individual, that's a collective anxiety most of us have, but some of us more than others. I have worked with several executives, several very successful people who fear that one day they will have to live under a bridge because they'll lose their job, they'll lose all their money, and they'll never have any financial security. And this is what drives them. And when I ask them, why are they working so hard, and why are they a workaholic, and why are they never seeing their kids? When we really sort of untwist the thinking, it comes down to a very primitive fear of like total loss. And that is interesting for us because it's usually not based in reality. That's usually based, in a fear mentality. So it's that kind of thing. I think, I know that fear too. I don't like it when the markets go down. but I also try to look at what is happening in me internally and psychologically, and sort of reality test it with what's really going on in the world.
And
we're all not as far away from the Chris Farley band down by the river as we think we are.
I don't know that song.
In part, what growing up means, and we probably speak a little bit more about this, is that it doesn't necessarily mean to not have a bad feeling if it's a bad day in the markets, or a catastrophic time like it is now, or whatever, but that we actually have enough maturity and presence and groundedness to not go into autopilot mode because we have those feelings. Just because I am anxious to have a difficult conversation, I can be anxious, I still have it, and hopefully I'll have it skillfully. It's a whole other thing to say I'm having an anxious feeling about a conversation, and then I'm really not having it. That is not growing up. Growing up means I feel what I feel, and I'm aware of my feelings, but it doesn't get in the way of what needs to get done. And that's the kind of social emotional maturity that takes time and courage and commitment to develop.
In the book, I noticed that you talked about common dilemmas. Do you mind sharing? You talked a little bit about catastrophe and things like that, but maybe some common dilemmas touch on in the book.
I have the chapters here, hot off the press. We're very excited that, really most of the book is written by now. It's been such a deeply satisfying process. So some of the dilemmas include things like, I'm their manager, but I want to be their friend. If anyone, for instance, has ever been promoted to a leadership or a manager role and all of a sudden is managing people that they used to be peers with, this is a very common and interesting dilemma. Again, it has a surface level of like, how do I do that? But then has sort of this psychological element. Another very common one is I take care of everyone except myself. This is not just for women, but I see it disproportionately in women in workplaces who are trying to make sure everyone else is okay, but their own self-care and their own work-life balance is kind of down the drain. I want to be successful here, but I don't want to play politics. I can't tell you how often we hear of people who want to be truthful, but they don't want to lose their footing in an organization where there's certain deals being made about, sort of you back my deal and I'll back your deal, and then we'll sort of help each other, but it's not always full of integrity. Another one is people think I'm a jerk. This is probably an interesting one if any of you identify with this, because it's often the thing we don't see in ourselves, but we, as part of our coaching process, we do feedback with the colleagues of people. If any of you have ever had a 360 assessment done, you know what I'm talking about. And for a few people, it can be a very sobering moment to realize people don't like them. People think they're a jerk. People think they're selfish. And what's usually required is a big dose and sort of education and emotional intelligence. I'll do one more, which is this one. Yeah. I'm successful, but I have no life. And we've met a lot of people of all ages, from 20s to 60s, who are tremendously successful professionally, but at some point they look in the mirror and they say, what's my life about? Is this the life that I wanted? I'm climbing a ladder, but what house is my ladder set up against? And is my life holistically what I want it to be? So those are just a few examples of the dilemmas. There are 12 of them in the book.
Wow, can't wait to hear about all those, and they ring true. You work with a lot of people that are entering what I call the second half of life, and as they do that, they really want to bring more meaning into what's going on, and raised families, done some of those kind of things.
What is interesting and is like, how does it connect, to what you are doing, and back to like, what does growing up really mean? And I think part of what was a big insight for us, due to, like when we stand on the shoulders of giants, there are a lot of people who've done fantastic research in psychology or business. And one of those theories is adult development theory. And part of what that really did is to say more clearly than people had said before, it's like, we're not grown up because we've moved out of our parents' place of a life insurance and maybe a marriage and a car and a house or so. There is no one marker and then you're done. It's just an ongoing development that becomes, in a way, ever more meaningful and purposeful and intimate and individual. And so while that is true for career, I bet that this is also true for the people you work with, where like, it's one thing to say, oh, I want to save, or I have like this X number in terms of net worth, and then, I'm a big person or whatever. But the bigger question is like, why? Like, why does it matter? How much of it matters? What exactly is my driving motivation? What gives me a sense of safety that is not external, but internal? That's a very different kind of work than making sure I'm getting a bigger job with a bigger paycheck.
Because we've also noticed for a lot of these people, the market keeps moving.
Yeah, it's so funny that how the, like whatever mark you have, then the mark keeps going, because the internal piece about not trusting life or not trusting oneself is still the same. And it doesn't matter whether the number is X or 2X or 3X. And so growing up in a way really means it's a form of maturing, where people kind of explore what matters to themselves professionally or in terms of their financial situation, instead of just running some scripts that were handed down to them from their parents or their families or social groups. And that's a sweet and fantastic journey to do the work for that. But it is work. It takes courage to do it.
That's right. So obviously lots of great insight. Tell us what a reader will really pull from this. Give us some examples of what your readers that read this book will pull out of it.
I mean, my hope, first off, is that readers will see themselves in at least one chapter. My sort of fantasy about this book is, there are 12 chapters based on these sort of professional dilemmas that I might read one chapter and say, oh, that's me. And then I might pass it along to a friend and say, I think you're chapter 7. Because we already start seeing people seeing themselves in the chapters. That would already be a very big step. Just self-awareness is the first and fundamental sort of step of emotional intelligence. So just being able to say, oh, I struggle with this thing. I have a good friend who, you know, at the age of 45 is still scared of her boss. That's a problem in my mind. She's 45. She doesn't need to be scared of her boss. So self-awareness would be the first thing. Oh, I have this thing. Second off is, if people are curious, if they've ever been curious about psychotherapy or counseling, we really open the door to say, if you were working with a coach, here's what we would do. And here's what we actually did with a client. So all of a sudden, it's not a black box. They get to sort of see a process and understand it. They get to walk through it. Part of the reason I love the psychoanalyst stories that I mentioned is they're so intimate. I mean, if you've ever been in a counseling room, you know that there are tears and there are fears, and it's a very sweet process, very tender to sort of uncover all the things that we're trying to sort of cover up and resist all the time. So you get to see that in through the eyes of one of our real life clients. And then at the end of each chapter, we give you 3 things. We give you questions for reflection, experiments to try, and practices to do, because we do believe that change takes time, it takes commitment. Most of these things are probably really well supported if you're already seeing a counselor, a therapist, or a coach to use these practices. But we also think they could be great with a trusted friend. Maybe you work with the book and you hold each other accountable for, you know, different chapters that you think might relate to you. We think you could also do it individually, though. I'm a very big fan of introspection and contemplation as a way to grow. So if people are committed, in a way, we're giving you a little bit of a playbook to say, here's how you could address these issues. And then finally, our last chapter is named Lifelong Practices for Personal Transformation and Professional Growth. And I've had to cull this down because there are a lot of things I want to share with people, but there are about a dozen practices we want to share that we think are just good for a lifetime of maturing. And this is just another way in sort of an offering from us to the reader.
Can I add 2 things?
Yeah.
Well, one thing is, and this is perhaps a matter of professional pride because we're both in the field, I think sometimes it drives us nuts when we look at like mainstream media or like, you know, TV shows that portray coaches or therapists, because it's so unrealistically represented, you know, like what the work is, or often the shrink is the shrink, or the counselor is the most neurotic, weird, bizarre person. And in a way, what we wanted to do is give people, because we do respect the work, we do think coaching and therapy can make a true difference in how a person is in the world and the kind of meaning and success they're creating for themselves. We are absolutely firm believers.
And we've experienced it ourselves.
And we've experienced it ourselves. And it takes a certain amount of work. And we wanted to portray the work actually with more reality and more sincerity than, you know, like a dramatized HBO show. So that's one thing. And we also found that there's some practices across all the work that we've done where we really felt it's like, this will really make a difference. It's not 50 things that will really make a difference. There are a few things that if you stick to this, if you cultivate that, you will make them noticeable, and not just from your own point of view noticeable, but from noticeable for the people in your life. You will grow and you will mature. And it's like, wow, let's do this.
You know, it seems like you've done a lot to bridge the, what I'll call knowing doing gap. So we've learned these things. We know we've got a problem, but what do we do about it? And it sounds like you've really wrapped up both your chapters and the book with some thoughtful exercises.
That's our hope.
That's definitely the hope.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah.
So you guys have known PrairieFire from its beginnings in August of last year. We've sure appreciated continuing to work with both of you and learning about this great work that you're doing and sharing it with our folks. You see any similarities between some of the things that we discuss with what you've put together in growing up at work?
So we have professionally as clients had the luxury to work with a lot of wealth management or financial firms. And one thing we really appreciate about PrairieFire is that you guys are trying to make the conversation about money and wealth and the financial situation and what it means to life meaningful, and not just a conversation about numbers. And that's a similarity we see also between like the work we do and what the book can be about, because meaningful, I would say, is like, if I try to translate it, a meaningful life is a life lived with purpose. And once the word purpose is there, then the question, of course, is like, well, whose purpose? My purpose, your purpose, my dad's purpose, my community's or family's purpose? And the similarity that we see is really that, like, we're encouraging people to figure out, what is my purpose? What do I want from this? What does this mean? And whether this is my leadership or my financial situation for myself or my family, but to have the courage to go out there and find your own answers and translate them into committed action. I think that that is something that I very much see as similar between the work you're doing and that we're doing, only that the context is different.
Yeah, I think we appreciate depth. My sense is we appreciate it, so do you, Matt. And depth means you don't necessarily just stick to sort of the first answer in one's head about a question, but you sort of excavate and you take your time. So in our conversations with you, when we've looked at sort of financial health and financial independence, to me, there's been a real depth to those conversations. And what kind of life do we want? And what is meaningful to us? And what is this about? That is what drives us, I think, in our work as coaches. I want leaders to be effective, and I want people to buy this book and be a more effective leader. Yes. And I want them to be a more reflective, deeper human being, frankly, if I have another sort of hope. And my sense is we share some of that sensibility with PrairieFire, and it's something that I really appreciate, and just appreciate being part of this conversation with you, I think kind of underscores that.
Great, thank you so much. And congratulations to both of you on the book, and what a great project. And I know, just from knowing you over the years, this has been one from your heart, but also a lot of work a lot of work and heart that goes into something like this. So congratulations for that. I'm excited to announce that we're able to offer a complimentary copy of this book to PrairieFire friends and clients. So we'll be putting an email address up for you at the end of this video. If you want to reach out to us, that we can offer that to you. We think this work that they've done is so important that we want to share it with you. And so you'll see that email address, and if you reach out to us, this will be on a first come, first serve. So while supplies last, we'll be offering that up as a complimentary service once it's complete. So what's the final ETA as far as you can tell for right now for the book?
Well, that's a great question. So we are currently doing a campaign to attract publishers to our project. And that campaign actually has about 2 more weeks. And then we already have a handful of publishers who've indicated interest in the book. Our hope is, in our best of all worlds, to have this book ready by by fall 2020, by the end of 2020. I suppose, depending on a publisher's cycle, it might be early 2021. So if people are interested in what we do, feel free to also check out our website, which is collaborative-coaching.com, to hear more about us. But the book is coming, I promise. I also forgot to mention, I am from Des Moines, Iowa. I love Des Moines. I love where Matt has his office. It's the coolest neighborhood of Des Moines. And I'm very proud to be from Des Moines. I often say that I'm sort of a Midwesterner with, East Coast veneer of living here since I've been an adult, but I just also want to have a shout out to the Midwest. Yay, right. Midwest.
Go Des Moines, go Valley Junction. That's right. Great. Well, we'll keep our subscribers posted on the book as it gets formulated here. But again, if you reach out to us with your email address, we will put you on our list to get that to you. Once again, complimentary. We'll also include in our show notes and down here their website, so you can check out more details about both Yosh and Yael, as well as the Growing Up at Work project they put together. So thank you both so much for sharing your time with us today. We're excited for you. We're excited to help however we can, and get the world feeling better at work, better at life, better with their financial world, wherever we can help. I feel like that's how we can get us through what are particularly crazy times right now on so many fronts. So again, congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.